We're live? No. 2, 1. And we're live. And good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world today. We are live from Press Club in Brussels. You're all very welcome to this session about the new Nordic CleanTech showcase. We have a great audience here today. Can we hear the audience scream? Yeah. Yay! And everyone live as well out there. You're a warm welcome to this session. We have a fantastic program up to 5 p.m. today with some of the leaders in the field of circular economy, solar thermal heat, clean energy, and we're also going to hear about the future. If you're going to hang around, because we're going to hear how clean energy can be revolutionized with Web3, AI, and blockchain. I have no idea, but we're going to be told about that here today. We have also some very, very special guests today, and we're also going to have a special announcement just after the break. So again, all welcome. And if we click one slide, Leo. Yes, thank you, Leo. So, New Nordics CleanTech Showcase, what is it about? What is New Nordics? How many knows about New Nordics? Oh, a couple of, that's good, that's good. So New Nordics is a term that was created by a think tank. So it was the Nordic West office. They wanted to include the Baltics as well, together with the Nordics. And they stated that to be the New Nordics. So that's what the New Nordics is about. And the next slide, please. So what is the New Nordics known for? What is the strengths of New Nordics? Well, renewable energy, and you probably heard about these solutions that we've been leading these initiatives in energy, clean tech and solutions for many, many years. Creating green jobs and highly educated engineering. That's kind of the, should we say, sign mark from New Nordics. And also what others say, I'm Swedish myself, but when you go in the world, you hear, what are you good at? Well, what can we do? We can share good examples and help and answer questions. So example, leadership, showcase solutions. That's what it stands for from the New Nordics. So next slide, Leo, please. Okay, so with that, we're going to start off this circular economy. How many here thinks that's important? Hands up. Well, it seems to be everybody. So we have one of the leaders on circular economy in the world who will give us a keynote, why circularity matters for decarbonization. So please give a big hand for Mr. Pär Larshans. Welcome, Pär.
Thank you so much, Lars. Did I have a clicker also as well, or should I? His clicker is on its way. Before I start, then I'm a director of human not human resources. I was director of human resources in the past for many years ago. I am a director of sustainability for Ragnsells Group. I'm also chairman for the International Chamber of Working Group Circular Economy in Paris, and I am one of the 3 co-chairs, coordinating how trade can be used in developing new solutions when it comes to circularity. I'm also a member of the board of directors and a member of the board of Water Europe here in Brussels. So a lot of my time are engaged in policy changes and enabling future development. I represent also Ragnsells. Ragnsells is my company I work with it. And we used to be a transport company in 1881, when we transported goods and people with horses. In the 1960s, we became a waste management company, taking away the waste that you produced, that you still are producing in our linear economy. Today, we are a recycler in today's linear economy, but tomorrow we'll become a raw material supplier and a detoxifier, where we use the urban flows as our mine. A mine that the more we mine from it, the better for the environment, the better for this generation, and especially for future generations. We will talk a lot about our innovations that can be implemented globally. My first understanding when I was director of human resources, because I had also, besides my work as director of human resources, I had also developed a concept how you can carbon label food, meaning that the customer can be part of the decision making. Should I buy the burger or not? I was asked, and this was in 2009, to present my findings at COP15 in Copenhagen, the Failure Cup. Business was not invited, so there was a side session outside of the regional COP, and I was asked to present. And so I asked them, how many minutes can I present? How long do you want me to speak? You will have 1 minute. 1 minute? Yeah, it's you, it's Tony Blair and Gro Harlem Brundtland. Okay, I take my 1 minute then. Besides me, that also had 1 minute was Professor Johan Rockström presenting the 9 planetary boundaries. And at that moment, I understood that this is what I need to understand. If I can incorporate the understanding of the 9 planetary boundaries in my business development, I will be able to offer solutions that the society will need. I will talk about the biochemical flows, the phosphorus and the nitrogen cycle, not as a problem as it exists, but out of a solution. This will be a key component, but also how circularity are really connected into the climate issue. The more we can create circular loops, the less risk we have to overshoot also the climate dimension. In 2015, when I also was headhunted to Ragnsells, where I now work, at the same time, both the Paris Agreement was on the table and also the sustainability goals. I heard about them. Before I read them, I thought it's going to be another millennium goal thinking. But as soon as I saw them, I saw this is totally different. This is a game changer globally, not just for the developing countries, but for all countries. And so I understood if we can make sure that we can develop solutions that also fulfills to contribute some of them, we will be able also to take a next step in our own development as a company, continuing being a family-owned company for generations to come. And we were very fortunate to I skipped that. I was very fortunate to be the example for innovation and leadership for the SDGs in UN at the high level political forum in 2018. And that was because of our phosphorus solution. Because suddenly you saw the need. If we don't source phosphorus and can care for the phosphorus, we know that we will produce much less food in the future. It has been really very up in the news the last year since the Ukraine war. So we see now that the food situation are really getting scarce. I will slip back 2 slides. What we have done at Ragnsells, as we have now understood that in the future circular economy, there's no waste. And if there's no waste, you don't need a waste management company either. So therefore, we have said, we're going to put innovations in place that fulfills those 3 criteria. Firstly, we need to make sure that we reduce the need of virgin resources somewhere else. So maximize the return of important resources. Secondly, we have put in so much nasty stuff in our ecosystem. So we need also to decontaminate, take out things. And then thirdly, make sure that we doesn't put any hindrances to future generations. We need to stop here and now. So these 3 principles are basic when we are putting money into innovations, or when we are selling company, or when we are buying company. We're not good in selling companies, we like to more buy companies, but these are criteria. Can they fulfill those criteria? Then we are interested. And the examples, what I will highlight now is our phosphorus, our nitrogen, and our potassium solution. All of them are critical elements for food production. I will also end with an example how we are using CO2 as an input, how carbon dioxide can really be a source of producing new resources and not being a problem set up into the atmosphere. So the first process is that we develop a solution where we can produce the highest quality of phosphorus from what it's treated as not possible. This is sewage sludge. But we can produce a phosphorus that is really very pure, perfect for organic farming, perfect also as a feed phosphate. But fortunately, today's legislation are linear based. It says if it has been waste, you're not allowed to use it. So therefore, it's extremely important for having policymakers to understand the potential that is that we can, in Europe, sustain ourselves with phosphorus. And the situation in Europe is that we're importing 90% of our need. It has been a lot from Russia. It has been reduced. We are still importing from Russia, but we have tried to minimize it. But then the biggest reserve in the world are in Morocco. And in year 2100, there will only be one reserve left if we don't find new mines, and that's the Moroccan mine. That's the reason why also China has put an export ban on phosphorus, because they see in 50 years from now, we'll run out of phosphorus, and then we can't produce enough food for our population. So they have already done this long-term planning. The next innovation is that we have developed a solution to produce nitrogen fertilizer directly from the wastewater. And the one that knows how nitrogen fertilizer are produced today is through the Haber-Bosch method. You incinerate natural gas or high energy, you take it down from the atmosphere, you then produce the nitrogen fertilizer, use it, and then it runs out in our oceans. And this is a real big problem. Both phosphorus and nitrogen in our oceans, in our rivers and oceans and lakes creates eutrophication. And in the end, we will have dead seabeds. Last week, there was a report from the Swedish Meteorological Institute that confirmed that the amount of dead spots in the Baltics are increasing rapidly due to too much phosphorus and nitrogen in the Baltics. The same in the Atlantic Ocean. This March, I was invited as the only company from Sweden to be represented as a business representative to the UN Water Conference in New York. And I put on CNN when I came to the hotel. The headline was that, sorry, people in Florida, you can't take a bath this spring in the Atlantic because it's too much of algae blooms that are coming in. It is stinky and it's toxic. The reason, too much phosphorus and nitrogen in the Atlantic. So we need to rethink how we are flushing away these resources. So therefore, we are now launching, or will launch, the 2100 initiative, speaking about how globally we will be able to source ourselves with food in the future, how megacities around the world by 2100 will be approximately 85, and many of them will have 20 million or more inhabitants. But the food will not be produced in the cities. And to be honest, we are building those cities in the best farmlands that we have. So we need to rethink. And FAO has been really clear. We need to produce much more food in our seas, in our oceans, but because we don't have land enough. And why 2100? Well, this year also when, as I said, when there's just one phosphorus mine left in the world. One megacity, how much is that? That's 10 million people. And we have this square between southern Norway, southern Sweden, and Denmark. That is the same amount of people. And here we have now set up a value chain where we can recirculate the phosphorus. The phosphorus can go back and become new feed for the chicken producer or the egg producer. And I was honored to do a keynote for World Customs Organization in this autumn. The first session they had about how trade globally can become more sustainable, how implement new regulations can support. And the headline of my speech was that not only rich people should be able to buy eggs in the future, but that's the reality. We need to make sure that we can bring back the nutrients. Megacities, where will we present it? We will present it in New York, this 2100 initiative, and talk more about the details, because New York was the first megacity in the world in the 1950s. And we'll also talk about how, and try to get examples, because we don't believe that we have the only answer. We will now like to collect other ideas, how we can make sure that cities globally can sustain themselves with food. We have a solution for nitrogen, but we need much more. The resource plant ID is a new way of thinking. Today we have wastewater treatment plants. Their obligation is just to clean up the dirt that we have created. So that's the only obligation. But we need to have the wastewater treatment plant to rethink their ID. They need to be the future resource plants. And this is a thing that I'm really are trying to implement the idea within policymakers here in Brussels. And the more we speak about that, the more interest it creates. And European Environmental Agency did publish the same report as I handed over to the Minister of Industry in Sweden last year, that resource plants need to be the next way of circular thinking. I've already spoken about the UN Water Conference, but the problem, if I'm going to summarize that event, was that almost the only thing they talked about was the need of adaptation. But if we don't mitigate, the seas will rise. We will continue to have the problem with the climate issue. So we need to start to mitigate now. The other solution, what we have now put on the market, is how we can collect fish poo. We collect it from the fish farms. Today, just in Norway, every year, we're emitting more than 16,000 tons of phosphorus directly out into the Atlantic. But if we can collect this fish poo, we will be able to produce energy for 600,000 households, and in total produce 11,000 tons of phosphorus. And that's more phosphorus than Sweden as a nation imports annually. So suddenly the fish poo has now a problem because it causes eutrophication. Tomorrow can be a huge possibility instead. We have already 4 boats going back and forth between Norway and Denmark. And why between Norway and Denmark? Because there's so little and not of good quality biogas production in Norway. So hopefully we can set up this operation also locally in Norway. The last of the nutrients is our potassium solution. And here we have discovered that there's a lot of potassium in the household waste that can't be utilized, or in the plastic material that we're using. So we have developed a solution that we, after waste to energy production, from the ashes can extract potassium. And the first plant is now up and running. It takes 50% of the ashes in Sweden to one single plant and separate the salts. So we both produce sodium chloride, potassium chloride, and calcium chloride. And out of the carbon perspective, the CO2 footprint from these different salts are 90% lower than conventional mining. And the biggest potassium mine in Europe are the one in Belarus. And they have totally now stopped the import to Europe. So again, we talk about the problem at the same time as we have the resources already in our urban flows. We will not just only produce the salts, we will also be able to separate out the heavy metals that can go to the smelters. So the zinc will become a new zinc table, something, or being used in the metal industry. The water, we are using really dirty water and cleaning the water. So we don't need to take fresh water, and extremely important. And then the last thing we will have is an ash after we've taken out the salts and the heavy metals. That has almost the same chemical substance as Portland cement. And it looks like it will be able to replace limestone in cement production. So suddenly there's, from a huge problem, what to do with ashes, suddenly there's a huge carbon sink of using them in the right places and replacing other virgin production. This plant was inaugurated by the Minister of Climate in Sweden on the 21st of April. And we already signed an agreement with Hitachi Zosen Innova about the license to use our technique in 12 other countries. It's China, Japan, Australia, and 9 other countries in Europe so far. Last but not least, we have other problems that we have created, but we are now turning those problems also into possibilities. And in the new Nordics, we also talk about the Baltics. And here we have an example how we are extracting, in this case, can produce precipitated calcium carbonate out of the ash mountains surrounding Narva. Ash mountains that has been stored there after energy production, but we are doing it in a different way. Normally, when you're producing a precipitated calcium carbonate, You extract limestone, you incinerate it, and then you can produce it. And what do you use PCC for? You use it as a filler. It is in all paints, it's in floorings, all plastic material. So it's needed. Our solution is that we are combining two waste flows, carbon dioxide and the calcium oxide from the ash mountains. And when we combine those, we produce PCC or CrCO3. The first plant is ambition is that we'll be up and running by 2028, and we will then use approximately 1 million ton of ashes. That's almost 10 times as big as our first acid salt factory. So this is a big one. At the same time, we will be able to supply Europe with a lot of carbon negative PCC. That is one of the biggest carbon emitter today. One of our partners is Tarkett. Tarkett is a flooring company, and they would like to replace their PCC with our carbon negative or carbon neutral raw material ingredients. The problem is we might not even be able to start it because we can't use the CO2. Frans Timmermans did visit us, and we had the honor to present our concept to him. And he was very amazed and said, "Yeah, that's very good." But when we approached him, that said that legislation in Europe say if you now take out CO2 from the chimneys of our plants, you need to dig it down to the seabed of the Atlantic. That's the only thing that are accepted. So you can't reuse in today's economy. We know that the Commission are now working on a CCU strategy, and hopefully this will be enabled, because there's a lot of different kind of plants where you can use CO2 as an input and not admit it back into the atmosphere. I've now demonstrated some examples. My hope is that Ragnsells by 2100 are known as a producer of nutrients, phosphorus, nitrogen, and potassium on a global level, where we create zero emission impact, but can produce resources that can produce food for future generations. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you, Pär. Big hand.
And if you want to follow our work in Brussels, we have a separate information site about what we're doing. So we'll be very transparent, and you can have our monthly newsletter that also will be sent out.
Thank you so much, Pär. We have time for a question. If anyone have a question for Pär. Any questions? Pär, that was fantastic. Oh, we have a question.
Thank you so much. I am Mutemba, the ambassador of Zimbabwe to the European Union and to the Benelux countries. I was interested, listening to issues of, I believe, pollution coming from potassium, from phosphorus, in other words, raising challenges of water quality. How do you mitigate that problem in, say, in an environment? I'm raising this question specifically because in Zimbabwe we have, say, 10,000 dams, but we are also to mitigate and to improve the quality of our agriculture, we are using a lot of phosphorus and fertilizers. And so these are, when it comes with water leaching and so on and so forth, and this water is being, these chemicals are washed into the water systems, and therefore suggesting the possibility of the reduction in the quality of water that is available for potable usage by the drinking population. How do you mitigate such a problem in an environment away from the sea, but in an environment like, say, like Zimbabwe?
This is a core component. I'm now focusing on phosphorus and nitrogen, but what we also have a solution how we can upstreams phase out PFAS. We can between 90 to 95% of the PFAS can be taken away. So if you add on chemicals, you need to remove them so you can then reuse the water. So besides phosphorus, nitrogen, and removing PFAS, of course, you can then also start to produce energy, biogas for cooling maybe in Zimbabwe, and then of course water that is perfect for either industrial use or agriculture. And we know that industry will need huge amount of water going forward, much more than it used today. And we need water for agriculture as well. So the core component in a resource treatment plant, I didn't have the time to cover the details, is that clean water for industrial use or agriculture purposes, remove the contaminants like PFAS upstreams, and then also utilize energy and nutrients. So yes, is my answer.
Thank you so much, and a big hand for Pär again. Thank you so much. So now you understand the importance of circularity and what it really means. Like phosphorus, for example, is limited what we have. So the work that Ragnsells and Pär is doing is absolutely pivotal for this work. So thanks again, Pär. So with that, we're going to take on a journey of looking into the sun, how we can utilize the sun as free energy, as heat. So with that, I will also then invite His Excellency Ambassador to EU from Zimbabwe, Amon Mutembwa. Please welcome up and give some key remarks for our next session about solar thermal heat, decarbonizing industries in Africa. A big hand for His Excellency.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much, colleagues, and also the colleagues who are online. Thank you so much, Lars, for inviting us, the Zimbabwe Embassy here, and I have my colleagues, including my wife, who have accompanied me to this very distinguished conversation here taking place today. My remarks, ladies and gentlemen, will be just to provide the context to provide the context of the conversations that are taking place here today. I hope you are hearing me well. Thank you. To provide the context of this conversation, and also to the extent where it is an invitation to the companies that are here to invest, and that are the leaders in technology, to take decisions to invest in the Zimbabwe market. So distinguished guests, fellow enthusiasts as far as clean technology is concerned, ladies and gentlemen, I consider this as a big privilege to make these few remarks, and particularly at this juncture in the history of Zimbabwe, and also in the history of the companies that are represented here, and particularly to the new Nordic Clean showcase. And this juncture, to the extent where they are taking decisions to be moving strongly into the African market and hopefully into the Zimbabwe market. So we are glad to be participating in this conversation. We gather, I'm saying, to celebrate ingenuity. We are listening with the one we're listening to by the presenter who has just left the floor, to creativity, to resourcefulness of individuals and of organizations who are committed to create a cleaner, a healthier, and a more sustainable world. With regards to Zimbabwe, colleagues, it is in the middle of an economic transformation exercise which is focusing on reindustrializing the economy, and also emphasizing on use of clean energy sources. And the use of clean energy sources demands that we invite those with the technology to be able to assist us in achieving our objective. Zimbabwe is on a trajectory to be a leading destination of foreign direct investment. To that extent, we have adopted the mantra that Zimbabwe is open for business. To get to where we are now, we went through over the past 4 or 5 years, 6 years, 5 years, we have gone through a journey, an economic development journey where we're trying to take the country from moving the country from an environment of crisis towards a developmental trajectory. And therefore, we went through what we call transitional stabilization plan, and with the objective, which objective was to increase revenue collection, embark on fiscal currency reforms, reduce budget deficit, privatization of state-owned enterprises. This is what just was meant to create the necessary atmospherics for the developmental journey, which started earnestly after 2020. Now we are in the process of implementing what we call the National Development Strategy. The objective of National Development Strategy 1, 2020 to 2025, and then the National Development Strategy 2, 2025 to 2030, is to take Zimbabwe to what I call the city on the hill. And what is this city on the hill? To take Zimbabwe into a developed or middle-income economy and society by 2030. We are keen to redefine a growth path, and this growth path is also moving simultaneously, accepting the challenge of technology and adopting it into our environment. So the government policy framework rooted in National Development Strategy, which lays foundation for the country to attain developed middle income status by upper middle income status by 2030. And in terms of the objective, that the two, together with sound research, development, and massive reindustrialization, we hope this will catapult Zimbabwe into a secure and clean future. And it is envisaged, what are the expectations of National Development Strategies 1 and 2, that we want to move economy from where it is now, as far as agriculture is concerned, from an $8 billion economy to something close to $12 billion economy by 2025, and also to move mining from where it is now, from that is hopefully to being a $12 billion economy by end of this year, to anything between 20 and $25 billion economy by 2025, and by 2025 to 2030. This raises the need, colleagues, that for requirement for significant technologization of the downstream agricultural sector, as well as climate-proofing agriculture as a whole. And we have been warned that we can think of climate-proofing agriculture, but it raises other issues in terms of water quality and the problems of pollution and so on and so forth, suggesting the requirement of a simultaneous intervention that water quality must be maintained for the health of society. And we are, in terms of industry, we have a steel industry which is being revived. By the end of this year, one of the steel, which is envisaged to be the largest steel manufacturing company, which we expect is to be on the ground and running. And then another steel manufacturing company is also coming onto the scene. So suggesting that the downstream industries, as far as steel is concerned, they are going to be producing a lot of requirements for heat energy. And that's where the intervention here is going to be significant. We are looking for, therefore, the kind of industrial intervention that will lead to decarbonization of the economy. And ZESA is going to be intervening later in the day, making strong indications on how this process of decarbonization is going to be pursued in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe's potential, a lot of potential in energy sector, and abundant, we have solar, hydro energy, and so on and so forth. And we hope we are going to be able to get the necessary interventions in the economy so that we can be able to achieve our objectives. And colleagues, therefore, the sum total of my remarks is that Zimbabwe is inviting you to invest and also to assist us in the process of decarbonization of the economy, introducing solar heat mechanisms into the economy so that the economy performs in a manner that is also healthy for the population. So we will take the opportunity of conversations here, on the sidelines to expand on the few remarks I have been able to make. And without much ado, I will say we are inviting you into Zimbabwe to come and invest in Zimbabwe, a country that has serious ambitions, a hub of development in Southern Africa and on the African continent, and this major source of reindustrialization, to the extent where we are going to be producing the requisite steel, which is required for industrial. But remember, steel production is accompanied with a lot of emission of carbon dioxide. So your intervention is significant. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Your Excellence. Big hand. Thank you, Ambassador. Thanks so much for that. And I visited Zimbabwe for a couple of weeks ago, and you can imagine that some of the brewers are using 7 ton coal a day for heating processes. 7 ton, and you can get it free from the sun, the heat. So it's a really interesting opportunity, and thank you so much for the remarks, Ambassador. And with that, now we're going to go to examples how that can be solved. So, to a man with a vision. So we should have Joachim Byström. He's the CEO and founder for Absolicon with us online. Are you with us, Joachim?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
He's far away somewhere. He should come out, and we should see him as well. So Joachim, as an inventor, and been working on this vision, which he's going to tell us about for over 20 years. Can you hear us, Joachim? And can you see us? So while we wait that Joachim connects as well, we visited also dairies, we visited hospitals in Zimbabwe, and they do the same, they shuffle coal. And if you're looking on today on the processes to actually minimize fossil fuels, it could also be interesting to preheat coal, for example. I'm not saying that we're going to continue, but in an example for CESA, if they would preheat coal with heat, they will save 10%. You can just imagine you can do that immediately. So are you with us now, Joachim?
Yes, I'm here.
Fantastic. See you yet. Leo's working on that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Now we can see you. So I hand over to you, a man with a vision. The stage is yours.
And do you have audio as well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I'm going to say a few words about Absolicon, and there'll be a lot of slides here in a fast journey, but we have one of the solutions here to create game over for fossil fuels. And our key component is that we make the best solar concentrator in the world with over 76% optical efficiency that can produce heat and steam for industries. And what we sell is a concept for countries to invest in robotized production line that can mass produce locally the solar collectors that are needed to replace the energy supply in the industry. And we do this with multinational companies. We have the world's largest food and beverage companies as customers for our solar collectors. This is a part of the whole decarbonization effort, which we all knew that we need to cut the CO2 emissions by half every decade to get down to zero by year 2050. So the CO2 carbon fuels need to reduce like this, but the energy consumption will continue to increase. So to get this equation to match, we need to produce renewable energy, and from there, mainly solar energy. But a common misconception is that electricity is the biggest part of the energy consumption. But in reality, electricity only 20% of the global energy mix, transport is 30%, and heat is 50%. So all the industrial processes are run on heat, not on electricity. So we have this logo, heat is half, to explain this to politicians and companies. So all the textiles and paper and cloth and everything, that is run on electricity. That is run on heat. And we're now going from being 1 billion people well off to being 4 billion people well off in the world. And to manage that, we need to produce 4 times more of all goods. So already today, we are exhausting the world's resources. If we just would quadruple this, there's no way that the world can survive. But if we look at an industry, it uses 1/4 of electricity and 3/4 of heat. The electricity can come from wind and PV, and the heat needs to come from renewable energy sources like solar thermal or wood fuels. And the big multinational companies, they have already made those commitments. PepsiCo, for example, have promised to reduce their emissions by 75% by 2030. They have 4,000 bottling factories and food factories around the world. And if you ask International Energy Agency or IRENA, they say that by the year 2050, there should be about 120 million square meters of solar collectors to power in those industries. So our solution is to concentrate the light like a magnifying glass onto a narrow pipe, and in this way produce the heat and steam that is needed in the industries. So this is our solar collector. It's a parabolic trough with a black pipe in the center, and that is heated up then to 160 degrees to produce the steam that is needed in food and beverage or textile or chemical industry. And we look at the CO2 emissions. They are very low compared to from even photovoltaic or wind power. So the emissions from a solar thermal installation is just this small yellow in the center, and the brownish, blackish is a combination of oil and gas. So this is what we build, solar installations that produce heat and steam for different applications. This is on Colgate Palmolive in Athens, and this produces 100% of the energy needed for one of their processes in the factory. So our vision is to make industries powered by solar heat. And we have signed with 7 of the world's largest food and beverage companies to do installations or to do purchase of consultancy services. So the big multinational food and beverage companies, they are on track to convert to solar thermal. So in 2022, we built very nice installations with multinationals. This is in Peroni in Italy, making steam for the brewery there that makes beer. And this is the installation with Olympic Brewery in Thessaloniki, Greece. So we know how to build those fields and to make heat and steam for those industries. So this is very important to see that there are no big technical challenges here. It's just to build and install. And now we have those multinationals helping us with the marketing. So here is a full page about the Absolicon installation in the ESG report from Carlsberg. But what we sell, as I started with, is not the solar collector, it's the robotized production line. And the robotized production line that produces 1 solar collector every 6 minutes. So when you invest in this kind of installation in the country, you can quickly start to use locally produced material, steel and glass, and mass produce solar collectors that turn the fossil consumption into solar thermal. Thank you. So
That was very fast and quick.
I'm a little quicker than the schedule. How many minutes have I left, Lars?
So I'll give you to tell a little bit about the latest installations, and particularly if you can elaborate on Egypt and also what is happening in Canada. If you please could do that.
Yeah. So those installations that we have done with Carlsberg and Peroni, they demonstrate how we can build large fields to power the industries with process heat. And based on this, we have sold 2 robotized production lines. The first to Creative Power Solutions in Egypt, that is going to be installed in early 2024, and the second to Phoenix in Canada. And both of those are engineering companies, quite small companies, who have a following of industrial companies that are interested in converting from burning fossil fuel to running solar turbine. So we are putting the robots together in Sweden, together with ABB, and then we are shipping them over to Canada and into Egypt, and we are then using local subcontractors that produce steel to make the solar collectors locally. So it becomes a very sustainable and local business instead of importing a lot of oil and gas and coal to run the industries.
Thank you, Joachim. We're still ahead of time, so you just
put me more questions, Lars. I can explain. I can say some more.
Pull out questions. Any questions to Joachim?
Yes, please.
No, your presentation was absolutely clear, Joachim. Tell us about the benefits of actually shipping a production line. I think that's kind of the key differentiator with Absolicon compared to any other solar collector. Why are you doing that?
Yes. So if you look at the PV market today for making electricity, and PV will be one of the main ways of making electricity in the future. 97% of all the PV panels are made in China. So the PV market is very difficult to establish local production in Zimbabwe, for example, because it's impossible to be competitive with China. But when it comes to solar thermal to make heat instead of electricity, then the scenes looks quite differently. Here there are possibility to actually establish a profitable local production and outcompete China. And that is partly because the materials that you use for the solar collectors are local materials. It's local steel that you use to produce them, and not those advanced silicon that you need for the solar panels, solar PV panels. And also the solar thermal collectors are quite bulky and big, so they are not that easy to transport. And that is, of course, one of the reasons why we have chosen to sell production lines instead of selling the solar collector. So you need to produce them locally. So this is actually a way to handle the energy supply with locally produced renewable energy. I think also it will be tricky to make windmills in, for example, Zimbabwe, because they are so competitive from China. So solar thermal is one of the industries where you actually can establish a local production. And when we saw the numbers, so even if everyone is talking about electricity, in the global energy mix, electricity is only 20%, and transport is 30%, and heat is half. But the heat is produced by burning fossil fuel. You have the oil truck coming every week to the brewery, and that doesn't, the politicians doesn't see that. They just see the power outages in the public grid. So the heat and all the burning of fossil fuel, that is flying under the radar when it comes to policy and political action. So I hope you catch a few of those things in this presentation.
Thank you, Joachim. We have a question here. What do you think of the potential for the African market for solar thermal heat?
That is absolutely gigantic, I would say. I think Africa could make this leapfrogging where you don't build those huge natural gas networks, but instead you have local supply of heat from solar thermal. And the technology we work with can also store heat between seasons. So you can actually get the 100% solar powered factory instead of being depending on import of fossil fuel. And Africa have fantastic solar resources. So compared to China, for example, where there is not so much sun, this is really a competitive advantage. So when the world is asking for, take tea, for example, today a lot of firewood is used to dry tea and to work in the tea industry. But if the consumers would start asking for tea that was made with solar heat without burning anything when you dry the tea leaves, then Africa would have a competitive advantage against other countries because you have so much solar resource. And I think this goes for many other commodities as well, that having this solar resource, at least in Africa, that's a big advantage that you have over other countries, other regions in the world.
Okay, Joachim, also, is there other good applications, because it's about reducing coal-fired boilers? What's the applications with solar thermal, for example?
Yes, I think the main application for solar thermal, if you look historically, has been to make hot water in single-family houses. So then you have a small thermosiphon system on the rooftop with a tank of hot water and vacuum tubes to heat the heat storage. And there is today 125 million homes that heat their hot water by using solar thermal. And then the next big thing that happened was district heating. So in Europe, there are many cities that are heated by using solar heat instead of burning oil and gas and coal. And the third wave now is the industry, where we actually can supply the 160 or 180 degree hot steam that is needed to run a brewery or a textile industry or chemical industry directly from the sun. So you can see how the applications has evolved from household to district heating to industry.
All right, thank you so much, Joachim. If you hang with us as well, we're going to connect with Dr. Gunter now from Zimbabwe. He's the chairman for CESA Holdings, Zimbabwe's energy company. So, Dr. Gunter, are you with us?
Yes, and from where we are, let me say good afternoon to you all. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. The stage is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Allow me to first to express my deepest appreciation for the invitation to share with you this very important forum. I extend tribute to our colleague, Mr. Lars Ling of the Clean Technology Region Impact Group, also to Mr. Joachim Bryanston, CEO of Absolicon, and not least to His Excellency Amon Mutembra, our ambassador to the EU, to whom I extend greetings from the city of Mutare. This is where I'm linking with you from. My name is Gunter. I'm chairman of the National Electricity Corporation company, of Zimbabwe. Let me say, a company for which I've been CEO since 1st of January, 1983, and been in and out. This is my fourth sort of tour of duty in the last 40 years. I say this because in that portfolio, I have encountered the evolution of concerns about global warming and efforts to global decarbonization of our economies. Today, I've been asked to address you on two aspects. First of all, the thermal system of energy recovery, which is climate compliant, as well as an opportunity on a grander scale for Southern Africa, which addresses what we've come to call the 10 Gorges project. This means an opportunity to develop conjunctively 10 major hydropower plant sites, which will provide energy security and stability to the countries of Southern Africa. I hope I have enough time to cover those two aspects. Let me start by providing or sharing with you a relevant experience. It's small, but important to me anyway, that I first encountered the science and technology of thermal conversion of solar energy in 1976 as a postgraduate student at University of London. I had a test rig for a flat plate collector, which also was harvesting thermal energy from the sun and storing it in an underground heat pump in an underground storage with a heat pump operating in between, and realizing what then were very, very fantastic performance is measured as a coefficient of performance, COP. But those were the late 70s, and the driving interest was not global warming or decarbonization. It was really energy harvesting and efficiency in conversion of solar energy into thermal energy and storage. It was a systems approach to the sciences involved. Later on in my career, I became CEO of the company I'm working for now in 1983. I think that those that have followed the history of climate change will agree that the 23rd of June in 1988 can be accepted as the birthday of the climate change, when Dr. James Hansen presented successfully his congressional testimony on of a model, scientific and mathematical model, which accurately simulated climate movements. I recall then that there were very big announcements, and there was an immediate rush and of interest, among which, cutting a long story short, I got involved as an invitee on a Ford Foundation scholarship attached to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and another pioneer of climate sciences and climate systems and climate institutions, Dr. This was Dr. David John, who was Ford scholarship, the Ford Foundation, a professor at MIT. He took me on for 6 months, in which we together were putting together a paper that became quite significant in the science. Dr. Derek White, yeah. What it sought to do was to link the interests and challenges of a developing industrialized world, which were built on fossil fuel energy, with the prospects of developing countries, which still had an option to develop on a green economy or fossil fuel economy, because they had not committed capital and resources as much as the industrial world in the direction of what we now call dirty energy. This paper was very popular, but the sad truth about it was that nobody really was prepared to action its recommendations. I might, if I have time, go through some of them, but basically the thesis was that developing countries should refrain from following the development path of energy systems of the industrialized world, because they will have a double problem of having to decommission this technology and investing in replacement technologies. So the advice was that from the times of the challenges, when the climate green economies. Unfortunately, this has not happened. And if I can share anything of value with this forum, is an introspection of why such a philosophy has failed. I might say, before I get to that stage, Hansen is credited with his congressional testimony on a climate change model. D.C. White, in fact, was also credited, he's late now, with the concept of carbon trading, which is very well articulated in the document which invited me to be part of its development. With that background, let me take you to some of the key recommendations of what it's an extract of the 1990 report that we produced. Basically, we're saying that the greenhouse gases must be reduced, and this can be accomplished by a strategy that introduces a time sequence of restrictions on atmospheric emission. The concept of time sequence is as old as 1990, if not before. But by and large, there has not been a global response to a coherent time sequence of restrictions which would meet the targets that were set before. The other recommendation was that developing countries, as I said earlier, should not follow the path of the industrialized nations, because they will face double the problem in terms of investment in conventional technologies and immediately to be scrapped and replaced by new technologies. The third recommendation was to the fact that this now introduced the concept of mutuality of interests, whereby developed economies can aid developing countries with capital to develop consistent technologies consistent with climate change objectives. And at the same time, they could offer tradable permits for CO2 emissions that could help that investment. Now, this is a concept of carbon trading, which unfortunately has not progressed to the extent envisaged in those years or at that time. An important recommendation was a realization that it is the energy producing and processing companies of the world that actually have the potential to provide and develop the new technologies that we need to achieve net CO2 emissions. Why? It is because it is their lives that are threatened, and they have been known to be not so poor. We're talking about the great coal mining industries. We're talking about the oil corporations, the Seven Sisters or four, which have very strong balance sheets. So the recommendation was that we should look to them through motivation or through other policy measures, that they should lead the financing of new technologies that would carry the world economies to a green transition. And then the last point is a further emphasis of the trading of emission permits as a method that could not only aid developing countries, but also relieve developed nations of obligations that will be placed on them. So that was the 1990s. And as I said, it didn't work so well, but the principles are still adoptable even as of now. Today's strategic options for this Southern Africa region are itemized on the screen there to first of all the nations of Africa really, they have latched on to this Vision 2030 as a set date to have completed the transition to climate change compliant technologies or to green economies. This is an ambition. It is not yet a bankable plan in any economy I'm aware of. We also have an aspiration to improve service delivery by the quality of supply, especially of the electricity, to ensure what we call the AAA, availability, affordability, and accessibility. But we remark that this has to be assigned to efficient political regulation, economic, rather than the past and present political regulation of these industries. We have to latch on to economic regulation. And then there's the realization that the UN Sustainable Development Goals, not one of them really, if not maybe just to say most of them cannot be attained without access to electricity. Then we can take ourselves to maybe in brief, the 10 Gorges project is our principal strategic option to respond to the challenges of climate change in Southern Africa. We have two major catchment areas, the Zambezi River catchment area, and which traverses from Congo, touches Botswana, but it's mostly accessible from Zimbabwe and Zambia and Mozambique. And also in Zambia, we have the Kafue catchment area. Between them, there are 10 major hydropower sites which are available to us to develop reliable, non-renewable energy that could aggregate to 15,000 megawatts. And we are calling upon the global economies that have the capacity and the interest to come and invest in these assets and be able to provide some 15,000 megawatts of dependable capacity based on these facilities. There are huge advantages of conjunctive deployment, but there are also requirements which are bunched together on that slide. For this to work, we have to restructure electricity markets in this region. There's a power pool, which incidentally was modeled on the experience of the Nordic power pool, which has been very, very successful. The most developed one of the 5 pools on the continent of Africa. But it needs to have a major restructure of its markets in order to support investments that can help these objectives. I am being reminded that I don't have much time left, but the next slide will show you that the power pool is itself a very right. That shows the transmission systems. The dotted lines, in fact, become the new lines that are justified or that are consequential to the 10 Gorges. So we end up with a very, very strong network, which will favor renewable energy, particularly PV solar, which requires a strong transmission. So that is the picture. What I want to just derive out of the two pictures is that we are inviting Europe to come and take an interest in developing the 10 gorges. We are also forecasting a shortfall of 11,600 megawatts by 2025, which will escalate, of course, with time. We are saying perhaps the most important point I would have wanted to deliberate on it by the time is the key that will open this opportunity and any other opportunities that depend on investments to attain sustainable energy systems. That is to say that we have failed in the past to attract investment on the basis of government guarantees because the capacity of those guarantees has long expired. The restructuring of our electricity markets is intended to introduce what we now call market guarantees. I will not go through the dynamic of that slide, but if I had the time, it's quite interesting in the way it demonstrates what is happening. Let's go to the next one slide. What we are saying is that we should not commit the resources of governments and national utilities to underwrite commercial risks involved in supplying the large mining industrial complexes in Southern Africa, which make huge profits, but governments are still subsidizing investments to supply them energy. We're saying that the markets must guarantee this infrastructure in the same way as markets are guaranteeing petroleum products that are used by these industries. So we can have, like in the last slide there, the slide that is showing, we can have competent power producers supply directly to competent primary energy markets with bankable PPAs that are underwritten and securitized by the same financial institutions that anchor the businesses of the mega projects and companies. And then in return, they can be competent producers, can be guaranteed competent, dependable revenues from the competent consumers. I think I'm not the one that is driving these slides. I have a colleague who's just rushing through them, but bear with me. Let me come to concluding remarks as follows. We have an opportunity to work together. We're saying that we have this experience now of what the industrialized economies need to be able to support us. They need efficient markets. They need very well-prepared projects. They need to see, there must be a clear line of sight to identify and confirm securities and investments that can support, incentives that can support investments. Now, what we are saying in Zimbabwe, we are the pioneers of the Southern African power pool, and we are still the pioneers of the 10 gorges concept. We are saying that immediately we are looking for technical assistance to develop this concept into businesses that are bankable, investments that are sustainable. And that is our way of contributing to the challenge of climate change. Thank you. Sorry, I had to rush towards the end, but I'm mindful that there are other presentations that should be given time as much as I have enjoyed. Thank you and good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gunter. Stay with us. We're going to have a little panel now with yourself, Joachim. And Joachim, are you with us?
I'm here.
And Dr. Gunter? Are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. I'm here. Yeah.
Both for your contribution to this topic. So one very important question around for this panel then, as I said, so what could local production of solar collectors means in Zimbabwe? To you, Dr. Gata, first, and to Joachim.
Could you run the question again, please? I didn't quite catch something there.
Okay, so what would local production of solar collectors means for Zimbabwe?
What could solar production? Yes, we are very much a fossil fuel economy, as indeed is South Africa and Botswana and some other countries around us. For Zimbabwe, as much as for those countries, solar collectors, thermal collectors will displace direct combustion of coal in a number of very critical applications, such as in hospitals, universities, hotels, food processing industries, tobacco curing. There's a lot of thermal application of energy that could be immediately displaced. In our particular case, our markets, the density of our markets is really for thermal energy is the large cities, the municipal areas. Harare, for instance, is already 1,000 kilometers from the coal mines. So when you replace coal-fired boilers with solar energy, not only do we have a direct replacement in the combustion of coal, but also the 1,000 kilometers need a lot of fuel, which is dirty fuel, which has to be used to carry the coal to the markets. Then in our case also, the manufacture of these units, if ZESA, our company, is involved, which it wishes to, will be domiciled at an industrial complex that we're already designing as a green industrial complex. In other words, power supply to that complex will be directly with the hydropower plants and not with the thermal power companies that we own. So yes, there's a lot of positive merit. The market is quite significant. I would say, I don't have actual figures, but I know that there's a lot of thermal coal that is carried from on the highway to supply a very diverse market for thermal applications. Yeah. I'm told that we have 1,452 coal-fired boilers that we've accounted for. There may be more, but that's one of the applications that would have to be that would benefit from this technology.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gata. Joachim, any remarks on Dr.
Yeah,
Gata?
I think today in many industries, you are at the mercy of the global energy markets. And to be able to produce the solar thermal locally generates a lot of energy security. And also, of course, export possibilities, that if you have a functional local solar thermal market, there will also be possible to sell solar collectors and knowledge to other regions and countries. And I think the market is very big. We talk now about one of those robotized production line, and that produces about 50 megawatts of solar thermal collectors per year. So once a few factories have started to install, I think there will not be enough with one robotized production line. You would actually need a number of them. And I can also say this about the robotization, that there is a strong drive now in the world to go to those more advanced manufacturing technologies. And I think that Africa is falling behind here and is relying on cheap labor. But if we look at the development that has been in Asia with China, they put a lot of money into getting their society robot ready. And I think to be competitive in the future, you need to work with robots.
Okay, thank you, Joachim. Thank you, Dr. Gata. I think that concludes this session. We will come back to follow and see how this conversation can continue. So Joachim, thank you so much. And Dr. Gata, thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for your contribution. So with that, we are going to continue to the next session here. And this is a very, very, very special session. Many years ago, matter of fact, in 2009, or it was actually earlier, 2009, I was meeting an eco-architect, Anders Nyquist, and we were organizing an event on clean energy, green building, and I said, who is the best on sustainability in the world? And Anders said, Gunter Pauli. And we have him here today with us. So please, Gunter, will you come up to the stage and share us a keynote of the future of clean tech? So there's no further presentation. Gunter Pauli is considered the Steve Jobs of sustainability, the founder of Zeri. He can speak for himself. Gunter, fantastic to have you here.
Tack ska du ha, Lars. Coincidence wishes that I was in Arlon in Luxembourg yesterday, and so Lars asked me to join. So I'm very happy to do so. In 1989, when I learned about climate change, I stated for myself as an entrepreneur that I would create a zero emissions factory, period. And I built and constructed the zero emissions factory in 1992, was opened. I don't know why people have to wait till 2050 to come to net zero. As an entrepreneur, I did it in 3 years' time. Started from scratch, built the factory, secured that it had a highly efficient system. I was making soaps at a time, which is an exothermal reaction. So it is very easy to go for zero emissions. And when you brew beer, you also have a heat production naturally from your fermentation. It's very easy to go for zero emissions, but we didn't do it. So in 1989, I decided. In 1992, I inaugurated the factory. And in 1994, I was asked by the United Nations to lead the think tank for COP3. So I was at COP1, COP2, COP3. Now let's be clear. If after 3 meetings you don't come to conclusive actions, I don't go to the 4th meeting. I'm not at COP28, I'm sorry. What we need to do is move over to more action, and more action means be more practical. And the main thing that we're missing, I believe, is that the future of clean tech is not going to be isolated technologies, where we look at a heat technology, we look at the phosphor technology, but we start clustering technologies together. We will only succeed when we take a mathematical approach, which is called system dynamics, which means that there is a dynamics in the whole system going, not piece by piece, because we've been trying for 30 years, piece by piece, case by case, and we have fabulous cases to present, but statistics don't change. Why? Because there is not what we need in an economy, the feedback loop and the multiplier effects, because we're doing standalone projects, standalone initiatives. So the revolution of sustainability and circularity will only come when you look, for example, at phosphates. Yes, I work in Morocco with OCP, the largest phosphate company in the world, which was declared the one with reserves to 2100. But when we are extracting phosphates from the soil, then you have 25% phosphates and 75% sterile material. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we convert the sterile material into paper, which we can produce without water, without cutting a tree. And that's recyclable forever, because What we have is a paper production that still relies on using huge tracts of land to grow what we call the green deserts. The deserts where there are trees, but the soil is being exploited to a point that it'll be a dead soil after we had 5, 10, or 15 harvests. So my focus really for the future of sustainability is to be able to look at how you connect the systems together, how you have one great initiative connected to another great initiative, connected to another great initiative. We're looking at how to decarbonize the Moroccan fruits and vegetable industry, starting by the elimination of the importation of cardboard from the north of Europe. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't weigh anything. And the massive carbon footprint on the cardboard is being replaced by producing locally cardboard, corrugated cardboard, from the waste streams of the mines. So how do we connect the fruits and vegetable exports with the cardboard production, with the phosphate mining, with the elimination of the water consumption, elimination of water consumption? I disagree with the statement before that industry will need more water. Absolutely not. We need to just eliminate the need for water from industry. And we have proven it, that we can do it, because at the moment we have already 5 factories producing stone paper. It's called stone paper in China. And the 6th one will be in Morocco. And Morocco will be planning for 5 more factories. But one of the areas we have to talk about when we discuss sustainability is the internet. The fast growth of energy consumption today is our addiction to using data uselessly and transmitted over networks that are guzzling energy. It's always a great initiative to see the cloud and the 5Gs, etc. But we have to wake up and realize that our addiction to looking at those little screens is causing a massive explosion of energy consumption, which is not mitigated by any at the moment. And the only way to change that around is not only to cluster technologies, but to be able to be disruptive at that level. And most of these technologies exist, but the biggest obstacle to moving forward is what I call vested interests that are politically wonderfully connected to avoid going through. So I think that unless it was said by Dr. Grata that, well, we can't do the transition if we don't have energy. Well, excuse me, you can't do transitions when you don't have AI and you don't have a new operating system for the web. And it's not just Web 3.0, it's Web 3D. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're looking and listening at ChatGTP, ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at a system that is based on text, hypertext, it's HTTP. How can we ever call this artificial intelligence? This is stupidity extracted from the past. There's nothing of the present and no vision of the future, unless it is politically incentivized with polarized interests that will force you to listen to certain jargon that will make you think in one or the other way. Ladies and gentlemen, the new internet will be a light-based internet. Because we all learned in school that light is faster than sound, and somehow we've decided to base the internet on radio waves. I don't understand who was so stupid to make that decision, because in high school, we all know that light is 300,000 kilometers per second, whereas the sound basically does 2,000 kilometers per hour. Ladies and gentlemen, the new internet will be an internet over light. And the new vision system, like these screens, are in 2D. Ladies and gentlemen, how is it ever possible we still look at screens in 3D when it should be in full 3D? Our whole world is in 3D, and we're forced to look at 2D. The new screens of 3D are perfectly existing, but why are they not used? Because we don't have the transmission to be able to feed a 3D screen at 20 gigs per second. 5G will never do it, 6G will never do it, 7G will never do it, because the technology is at fault. And the only way to go faster and broader with our internet is to pump much more energy. So we are in this vicious circle where we need to do a transition of technologies, and it's not just the energy, but everything related to the internet has to decouple itself from this iCloud where information goes up and down all the time without any cable and wire. We need to urgently go back to the optical fibers, which can transmit you data at 10 tera per second. And somehow people decide to go for the best there is, called the 5G, which is a poor, at best, 100 meg per second. Ladies and gentlemen, why are we not using the real potential? The new screens, that screen that we're seeing here is using a projector, and that projector is a guzzler in energy. Today, we have the new technologies that are called the light field technologies, and the light field technologies eliminate the LED lamps. LED lamps is a typical example of the rebound effect. Of course, if you look at the traditional lamp and you see the LED lamp, of course, the LED lamp is a marvel. It saves 96% of the energy, yes. But when you go to a big concert of Mick Jagger or Elton John in Brussels, then you will see these huge screens behind the artist with 1 million LED lamps. That's rebound effects. It's very efficient when you compare it to an old technology, but then we use it 1 million times and becomes a gas guzzler. That is the problem we're facing. And so therefore, we need the new technologies, which is called the light field technology, where you activate photons within a light field. I was asked to talk about the future and decarbonization. Well, decarbonization means dematerialization. Now, when I see windmills on a screen, my tummy starts crunching because that's 2,000 tons of concrete and cement per windmill. It doesn't make any sense because 8,000 years ago, the kite technology was developed by the Polynesians, and the Polynesian cultures knew perfectly well that the most efficient one is not a windmill that is rotary, but it is the kite that makes the eight. 8,000 years ago, the Polynesians knew it already, but somehow we are so fascinated by our vested interests that we only do these windmills, which are not a solution for renewable energy. But a kite, which is basically a piece of textile on a rope that moves up and down like a yo-yo, is only using 5% of the materials that are required in order to get you 3 meg per kite. 3 meg per kite capacity of energy production, one kite. And what the beauty of it is that when you use a kite, once you've launched it, it will move anywhere where there is wind. A windmill is fixed. And when the wind is there, they say there is no wind. No, the wind is just above or just below. When a kite, with artificial intelligence, we can move exactly to where the wind is. And we have 24 hours of wind per day, 365 per year. I don't know why Europe is not permitting these windmills for the cheap argument that somehow this is dangerous for airplane navigation. Ladies and gentlemen, let me submit to you that a plane that is flying at 500 meters altitude is in danger. It's not the kite that's the problem. It's the plane that has a problem. And therefore, we see that the revolution of these technologies will be in Africa, because Africans do not have these vested interests. In Asia, they do not have these vested interests in established industries. And that is why we're in need of thinking afresh. So I summarize. First of all, the concept of zero emissions is from the 80s, and it's promised by 2050, 70 years later. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a little bit too slow. We need to accelerate. But in order to accelerate, we need to do clustering of technologies, and we need to understand through very sophisticated but easy to learn mathematical system dynamic modeling how to relate and link so we can create the feedback loops and the multipliers. Because without multipliers, we're not going to get there. And finally, my comment is that it is urgent that if we want to go particularly in some of the sectors like energy and internet, we really want to go fast track, we have to adopt disruptive technologies. Technologies that break completely what is there today. And that is the opportunity for the entrepreneurs to start and make a difference for the common good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Professor Gunter Pauli. Now you understand why Anders Nyquist recommended Gunter Pauli. So thank you, Gunter, and Gunter will come back with us. We're going to conclude this day and session. So now we're going to something that is kind of the key issue that we have today with renewable technology like solar and wind, and that's stability of grids. And we're going to hear from Pauli at Exam from Finland. And Pauli, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me? I am ready.
The stage is yours.
Okay. Thanks a lot to everybody for this occasion. Thanks a lot to Lars for the introduction. I thought I would do this like not like a standard pitch, but more like a discussion. So here we are. Exam is addressing one of the main problems of the green energy transition. This is the stability of the grid, as Lars said. If I ask my children, what is the green transition about? They will tell me that it's about stopping to burn fossils and produce energy with renewable energy, like wind and solar. What is the problem in this? There is a bottleneck, and it's the stability of the grid. In the old days, we were, every moment, an electric grid has to have the same amount of production and the same amount of consumption in order to be stable. This is to maintain the normal 50 hertz that is in Europe or 60 hertz that is in the United States. The problem it is that before, when we were producing energy with the fossil fuels, the consumption was leading and the production was following. This is like just pushing the gas on your car. I mean, we need more energy, we push the gas a little more. We need less, we let the pedal go. The problem is that when the more and the more we introduce solar and wind power, and they are called variable renewable energy, the more the production has a life of its own, and it goes up and down, and we cannot know precisely how much this is going to be in 10 minutes or when it's going to be tomorrow. So what do we do? You know, if the consumption is this and the production is up there floating, what do we do with all of the excessive energy? We have to balance it. At Exam, we have decided to balance the grid on the consumption side. This means that we produce balancing capacity that we sell to the transmission system operator, and we can do it cheaply, cleanly, and flexibly. Let me say something about myself. I'm not, as you probably have already understood, a technical person or a person with a strong business background. I have been studying philosophy. I think this tells something about our company, Exam. The fact that I am one of the founders states that, and I am, people say, a philosopher, states that we are ready to face problems and attach them or fight them, looking at the problems from different perspectives and different point of views. What we've been doing at Exam, we have been basically flipping the coins. Balancing nowadays is mostly happening through virtual power plants. And this means that there is some machines somewhere, that are able to consume energy and that they can be used according to the needs of the grid to balance the grid. The problem is that if I have a factory that is producing, let's say, paper, and when we have the most of our balancing capacity is usually also when we have like a cheaper price in energy. So what does the owner of a factory wants to do? Does he want to produce when the energy is cheap, or does they want to give their machines, to give the control of their machines to the transmission system operator to let them float in their production according to the needs of the grid balancing? Of course, the production comes first when the electricity is cheap. So what we do at Exam, we produce primarily balancing capacity. It means that we have our power assets, and we are eating here. In Finland, this is a very profitable business. We have to warm up our houses and our buildings at an average of 300 days a year. And with these machines, we absorb the overproduction of energy that the green energy transition is going to produce, and then we use it to do something else. In the specific case, we can sell heat. Of course, many other kind of power of machines can be used to do this. In the future, we can think about using cooling, for instance, with the overproduction of electricity. And our engineers are working hard to make that happen as well. What is the difference? I'm really puzzled when I hear nowadays, let's begin again. According to the International Energy Agency, we need 500 gigawatt of balancing capacity by 2030 in order to achieve the net zero targets that we all have. 500 gigawatt, that's really a lot. What is the problem? That the balancing capacity that is produced right now, it's very, very expensive. I'm puzzled. A few weeks ago, I heard of a project in Finland, a hydro project, who might be able to have a 4,000 megawatt of balancing capacity. The problem is that this is going to cost $500,000 per megawatt of balancing capacity. We at Exam now are producing our first site, our first megawatt, and we are paying it no more than 75,000 euros per megawatt of balancing capacity. This means that we will probably get much below 50,000 euros of costs per megawatt of balancing capacities, and this will allow to introduce much and much more renewable energy to the grid if we can adopt balancing capacity that is cheap and flexible and clean. We don't believe in balancing the grid through batteries. The vision of many economists for the future is that we are going to have an overproduction of energy, and the price of energy is going to be tending to zero. What is so the cost that the final consumer is going to pay for the electricity, that we get everywhere in our places and to make our appliances work? It's going to be the cost of distribution and the cost of balancing that is being built at the moment. So our view is that it doesn't make any sense to produce balancing capacity with a lot of investment. And we at Exam are proposing a different solution that is primarily balancing. So I repeat, Exam produce balancing capacity cheaply and flexibly. And what do we do with the energy that we consume? We produce at the moment heat to heat our buildings. And that's, what everybody needs here in Finland, at least, but in many other countries. I think I might have a couple of minutes more. I understood that Lars was moderating, but if there is any questions, I'm ready to answer. Someone is coming there? No. Yes, Lars is coming.
Thank you, Paolo.
So a different presentation, probably in a day of many pitches and so on, but here I am, as I am.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was very thoughtful and addressing one of the absolute biggest challenges we have in balancing the grids. What's the next steps for
Yes,
exam?
exam. Now the first, our first megawatt is being built in Kotka, a small city in Finland, and we are probably going to build our second megawatt. I mean, the engineers are now working to make it like more efficient and to build it cheaply. And then the next step is going to be internationalization. We are probably going to build our third megawatt in Sweden or Norway, and we are planning, you know, to connect the production of heat to the district heating, so we can hopefully in short time we are going to be able to warm up a little of Stockholm. Might be that's what we do. We have been founded until now. We have our pre-seed and seed round, and we are going to begin in the autumn our third round of financing. It's going to be something between 8 and 10 million. So we're going to ask to boost internationalization and growth of the company. We seriously believe that our business model is a winning one, and that we can, the green energy transition, we can make it happen fast everywhere in the world.
Thank you, Paolo. Final message from Paolo to the world.
To the world, as I already stated, I'm someone who studied philosophy. I cannot say I'm a philosopher, because philosophy is a love of wisdom, and I'm not very wise, but I'm trying to be. And one of the things that wisdom means to me is bring balancing within us and to the world. And that's what I really hope that we can do and what we're striving for. I have one thing also, sorry. The fact that I'm here, it doesn't mean that this is made, exam is built like with the left hand, like we say in Finland, you know, like making things like that. All the rest of the team is made of engineer and information technology people and so on. So I'm the only humanist in the company. And this tells something about our difference and how we decided to face problems and rethink them. Thank you. So balance the world. That's what
Paolo.
we want to bring, balance to power. That's it.
Thank you. Big hand. Thank you. Thank you, Paolo. And with that, we're going into a break, and we're going to come back 3:29 sharp. So welcome back. Thank you again, everybody, for this first session, and see you back at 3:29. Thank you.
Hi, Michael. I'm testing the audio before they start the presentation. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you and see you and everything.
Perfect. Great.
How are you today?
I'm doing just fine. And I think the conference here, they still have a coffee break. So I think they will start in a few minutes.
Good. Your day was good yesterday?
Yes, very good. I also got to listen to Gunter Pauli today. It was a very good presentation.
Good. I missed it, I guess.
Yeah.
It was
So I will mute me now because we are still on live stream. So I'll mute myself and wait until Lars will introduce us.
okay. Should I mute myself as well? Is that what I should do?
Yeah, I think so. That would be good.
You're so silent. Are we ready, Leo? Okay. Okay, so we're live and welcome back to the new Nordic CleanTech showcase here live from Brussels at the Press Club. We had a great first session. We had a great break now with good conversations around the topics. And welcome back, everyone listener. And now we're going to have a very special announcement. And this goes back to a story, what we told again, how me and Gunter Pauli met. You remember?
Of course I do. How could we forget? We started doing things. And when you do things, you always remember. If you're only talking and it's blah, blah, and blah, blah, and a lot of analysis, then you get paralysis and you don't remember it. But that is one of the moments that we met and we decided to do things.
So this was back in 2009, and it was Anders Nyquist that brought us together.
That's correct. Anders is, for me, the greatest architect that Europe has known. He created an eco-village in the 60s already, 1960s. That's before Findhorn was around. That's before eco-villages was talked about. And that was all the way up in the north of Sweden, a small town called, place called Rumpan.
Translated as?
Well, you
Funny.
could say it, bum is nicer than whatever
bum,
you
the
said.
bum.
But at any rate, it was an extraordinary that Anders and I, we met at a conference on architecture and sustainability. And when I learned to know what Anders Nyquist had done in Sweden, in the north of Sweden, the kind of projects he has managed, I said, may I be your ambassador? I mean, can I promote what you're doing around the world? Because what he had done was so extraordinary. And of course, in all humility, Anders never ever discussed it. And one of the fascinating things is that he was focusing for a major part of his work on toilets. So that's why he called also Rumpan. He was toilets, because how can we ever justify to flush drinking water down the drain for something that should never have been flushed with drinking water in the first place? And then we're exporting all around the world this hygiene concept of flushing toilets with drinking water. I mean, this is pure madness. And we don't have to even talk about the water and then the energy. And then what do you do with this stuff floating in water? Where does it go? And then we know that a lot of it flows straight into rivers and lakes and goes on and on and on. So Anders was very practical as an architect and very focused. He constructed the first school that was, well, a healthy and an energy efficient school, health and efficient. That was the Lagerberg School in Timrå. And the Lagerberg School was something that was fascinating. All the toilets were dry toilets. And of course, he had a big fight with the officials to get a permit to do it. But all the, whatever was collected actually represented at the end of the school year, less than a ton of material, which of course was used for fertilizing the forests. And inside the schools, there was a natural ventilation system with something that was called levande filter, the living filters. So instead of putting plants on the bottom of the ground, as we usually do, or on a little tabouret, he placed the plants right under the roof next to the window. So there was a huge circulation of air. And if you know a little bit about the physics and chemistry, you know, CO2 is rising and oxygen drops. So if you put the plants down, you're breathing the CO2 at night and you never get the oxygen. If you put the plants up under the roof, then you're feeding oxygen to the children. Simple change, but that was implemented by Anders, and the airport, the local airport, actually implemented a system whereby the air in the airport was as fresh as you could have it outside, even with airplanes pumping, you know, the fumes into the atmosphere. So Anders, very pragmatic, first eco-village that I know in Europe, the first self-sustaining school, the first green zone combining different activities whereby the frying heat, the heat of the frying oil of the French fries was used to actually heat the air in the garage next door. And very practical hands-on operations. Then Anders went on, and this was the most memorable thing for me. We traveled together to Bhutan. And so Anders joined 3 weeks in Bhutan, where I was working with the government. And he first decided that he needed to study the architecture of Bhutan. And I wanted him in Bhutan because Bhutan started to use concrete and cement, whereas they had been building for 4,000 years with the renewable woods. Why would you go for that in an earthquake prone zone? So let me just tell you, Anders was a real Viking. You know, the Vikings, hardship is pleasure. It seemed like it. You know, he was really there to move on. For me, he was the designer of self-regulating buildings. With air circulations going around in the buildings, he would take the cold air from the outside, calculate the length of the tunnels that was required to heat up the air, and then actually have a continuous refreshing of all air in the building. Now, what happens when you have plants pouring oxygen down and air flowing fresh in? Your kids have all the oxygen to pay attention. The sports halls that he was designing was halls where that the more people inside the hall, the fresher the air would get. So the better the kids would play one against the other, be it handball, volleyball, or, you know, indoor soccer. So to me, Anders was the nature-inspired architect that I've known in the world. And therefore, I think when you discussed with me what with the family, with Karin Nyqvist, his daughter, and with others have been planning, I said, I want to support that. So announce.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Gunter. Before we do that, also welcome Anders' daughter, Karin. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
It seems like you have Bhutanese flags above you.
I do. I sure do.
Excellent. That's a great memory for our dear friend Anders.
Yes.
And we also have Michael. Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Okay, so what we want to announce today to honor Anders. Anders was unfortunately taken away from us due to COVID. 84-year young eco-architect. I had a hard time to keep up with him, where we were running around the world. Events like Gunter's Blue Economy in Hawaii. Gunter came with the Queen Mother of Bhutan to Rumpan. You remember that?
Oh yes, and she slept in the self-sufficient houses of Anders and used the toilet. The toilet I talked about.
Yes.
Okay, so without further ado, Karin and Michael, would you do the honor, and we will have the next slide up to announce this special announcement to Anders' legacy. Karin or Michael?
Yes, for the first of all, I'm very, very happy, Lars, that you make this possible, that you invited me and Michael Ben-Eli to this event. And it's with a very, very great honor that I learned that Michael Ben-Eli, the founder of Sustainability Labs, has initiated a sustainability prize program that will be named after my father, Anders, at the Royal University of Bhutan. So this is a great pleasure, and I was very, very happy when you presented this to me, Michael. And I would very much like to invite you to talk a little bit more about this wonderful program that you have been running in Costa Rica first for 13 years, but you are now going to do in Bhutan.
Thank you, Karin, and hello, everyone. Hello, Gunter, and hello, Lars, of course. I think we share, I believe, in cherishing the legacy of Andres, as we do a love for his person and a deep appreciation of his work and commitment to sustainability. I think Gunter was putting his finger right there that Andres was doing the things way before anyone was thinking about them. Andres loves Bhutan, the country and its people very much. So the Sustainability Prize Program that we are setting up with the Royal University of Bhutan will be a great way to honor him. The program will recognize each year students' graduation projects that best demonstrates application of the lab's sustainability principles. We shall be very happy, of course, to share with you much more details about the program in due times. So thank you again, and I look forward to collaborating with all of you on this exciting, impactful, and very timely program. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. And I remember actually Michael learned to know Anders when we all together visited our regeneration of forest project in Colombia. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely so. This was a memorable moment. You know, one of the things that I will never forget, you remember Peter Dean was with us as well. Now, I'm not the shortest person, but I'm not as tall as both of them. And we all had to go visit one architect in Bogota one evening. And all we could find was a tiny little cab, like a mini miner. So the three of us were sitting there hunched down like embryos to get the heads in and the legs in and everything else. Anyway, the trip to Colombia was a major inspiration to me at the time. You led it very nicely, Gunter, and I was very impressed by the work of Pauli. Paul Lugari, who was another architect that was way ahead of time with the project he developed there. And in fact, that trip was what triggered what later became the Sustainability Laboratory. So that was a super nice memory.
So much. I think it's important to know that whenever you take initiatives, you take it global. You're not going to take it just local. You improve whatever you can do and you achieve locally, but then you spread the good news by not bringing the good news, but by doing the good news. And this is to me very important. And that is what Anders was all about. He always had a piece of paper and a pencil with him. And I remember when Anders Nyquist was visiting Zimbabwe, he was in Zim because he came to my daughter's village, Kufunda village, where she was living at the time. And in Kufunda, he realized that my daughter had built a house for mushrooms and not for herself, in order to feed people locally with the mushrooms that could be grown on dried grasses and little wood wastes that could be found in the bushes. So he said, well, if you do that for the mushrooms, let me, for you, design a house. And he designed for her, in the 48 hours he was there, a house, a self-sustaining house in water and energy, with all the airflows that we discussed before, and of course with the toilet that he was so appreciated of. Anders was in Zim as well. So we've connected Latin America, we've connected Asia, we've connected Europe and Africa.
Fantastic. So with that announced, we can get the image up, Leo, of Anders that we have as well. So, and Michael, we will come back and share more information about where one could learn about this initiative. Correct?
Yes.
And I'd like to
And I do hope
thank Gunter Pauli also for the wonderful presentation that you did of my father. It was very true.
I do hope, Michael, that with your network and capacity, we can bring out Anders' book in several languages. Anders, before he passed on, actually summarized his 49+1 projects that he has implemented throughout his life. And that book to me is the greatest collection that I know of ecologically designed buildings done by anyone in the world. So I very much look forward to see that book being used as academic material and an inspiration for the architects who all want to be a part of this green energy revolution.
Well, that would certainly be a very worthwhile thing to do.
Michael. Thank you, Karin.
Thank you very much, all of you.
For now. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you. Now we have announced this special sustainability prize for Anders Nyquist, eco-architect. Thank you so much, Gunter. And we are going to continue now. We have more amazing innovations to be shared with us. And Gunter, thank you so much for today. A big hand for Gunter. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, I want to invite Mr. David Radsovit up on stage. David is a seasoned entrepreneur. We've known each other for a couple of years now, and he's going to share some really interesting work that he's been doing involving using AI. And I'll let you take it away, David. Welcome. A big hand for David.
Thank you very much, Lars. And I wouldn't say that the latest thing in AI is what I'm doing. I think the latest thing that I'm doing is connecting the world, connecting the energy systems, and doing smart homes smart, especially for energy. And it's a very simple solution that we actually had for a long time. It's just that we now have more easy access to AI. It's a lot cheaper, and we can just globally roll it out for the whole world. And by doing an ecosystem and a dashboard, which we call Power Save Me, and we're also doing an open API, an open system for everybody to connect to, which we called energyapi.dev. By combining these two, we can actually save a lot of power in everybody's homes. We can increase the revenue for all the energy companies. We can save on rolling blackouts. And we can basically make the energy through the world, through Scandinavia, through your own home, a lot smoother, about 20 to 30% cheaper. And we can also reinvest the money that the energy companies will make into infrastructure and make the world better, with everybody winning in the same solution. So by doing this, it's just going to be an easy AI system. You don't have to have your 20 apps in your mobile phone. You have one app that just adjusts your whole house according to the next 24-hour energy prognosis, which will take down your costs. So saving on energy infrastructure and your invoices to the energy companies is actually as simple as that. You might think of it as the Airbnb for energy. You connect all the small slices and all the small IoT devices, everything from your fridge to your freezer, to your TV, to your dryer, everything. And most of these things today have a little bit of an echo function. Your TV doesn't need to run on 100%. Your freezer doesn't actually need to run for the next 10 minutes. But if you have 1 million freezers that you can turn off for 10 minutes, that is a lot of energy. And for a city like Bangkok that have 12 million inhabitants, that might mean you have like access to 8 million fridges. So if you can turn those on and off in certain times, you can avoid energy spikes. You can dampen energy spikes, and the whole energy grid and everything in the infrastructure will have a way, way, way better life. So your state will save a lot of tax money, which might also make your tax bill a little bit less. So for San Francisco, for Los Angeles, that would be a significant amount of money to be saved. So as Lars loves questions, I'm obviously open to take in any questions if you have about systems like that. And I know we have some excellent people here as well from Estonia that loves crypto balancing, and I'm in awe for your development. So thank you for your insights earlier today. And also, I know that we have some super interesting people from Zimbabwe and Africa that I would love to coexist and work with in those energy and heating solutions that you have with fantastic companies such as Absolicon. And obviously, sustainable living and sustainable houses is a little bit longer to go, but I think we can all make everything from lighting to heating to cooling co-interact with each other on a long-term basis with a little bit of help with AI.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much to David. Big hand for David. Thank you. And also today we've been talking about hardcore solutions. Now we're coming to the really important things. And sustainability for me, I don't know what it is for you, but that means I'm functioning. And if I'm not functioning as a human, nothing else matters. So what is the core of sustainability for you? For me, that is kind of very essential and very important. If I don't function as a human, nothing else matters. So with that, I would like to invite Natalie to take us on that path on human-centered sustainability. Natalie, welcome up. Big hand for Natalie.
Do you have my slides? First, I would love to express my gratitude to Lars for inviting me here and giving me the opportunity to speak about my company Moonai, which is the solution for sustainable health. So it's a little bit of a different kind of topic. And like Lars said, it's about the individual and kind of what we can do personally on a kind of micro level. So first, a little bit about my background. I have a master's in financial economics, and I'm also a holistic health coach. I provide brief therapy services and have 2 years of psychology studies behind me and continuing. I am curious about finding sustainable solutions for health. And this curiosity was kind of kicked in by during my last year of master studies, when I was completing a double master's and working full-time at the German Stock Exchange. And I was kind of making short-term solutions to be able to meet the demands of myself, of other people, and really not considering how I would function in the long term, how I would sustain myself. And I was really on the verge of walking into a wall. And that kind of sparked the interest to find alternative solutions to heal my own burnout, my anxiety, and other symptoms that I had. And I had an intuitive feeling that the root causes of these things were related to the choices that I was making in my life. And I knew that in my case, one pill wasn't going to solve that, but I had to go to the bottom of these symptoms. So why do we so desperately need to find new solutions for health? So the EU funding for mental health only has passed 600 billion euros. And healthcare systems in a lot of countries are in crisis. For example, in Finland, where I'm from, We have a healthcare reform right now, and there are a lot of questions and problems. And from my own experience working with government funding for psychotherapy in Finland, there really is a big problem where people might have to wait for 1 to 1.5 years before they can enter psychotherapy. And even after 3 years of paid psychotherapy, they might not actually be feeling that well. So there is something definitely that is missing in the Western medical model, in the systems that we have. So I think that there is something that we need to change. Also, the aftermath of the pandemic has led to radical decline in mental health. So people generally feel more anxious, they feel more depressed. We have substance abuse have gone up since the pandemic, and people feel isolated. So I think it's very important that we find a holistic way to look at things. So with my company Mooneye, I work with individuals and groups offering holistic health coaching and solution-based therapy. So my coaching is centered around people that have high demanding lives like myself. And really that's why I wanted to create the Mooneye solution. So the Mooneye solution is an integrative model of alternative and Western medicine. And the focus is really on holistic health. So we're not just looking at one part of the body like the heart or the brain, but we're looking at the individual as a whole and all parts of the individual's life and how that affects the person and the symptoms and the illness that is created. Mooneye solution is about learning to find sustainable and natural solutions. I have been working myself with indigenous people in Peru, like in this picture, and they have a lot of alternative ways to look at health. And some studies have found that some of these communities are the most psychologically stable communities, adults and children in the whole world. And that is really what also sparked my curiosity. What are these people doing differently than what we are when we are so disconnected, and they have this community and they really look at the root cause and all the other aspects of health than just trying to deal with the symptom. So the focus of the Mooneye solution is empowerment of the individual. So to take back the power, so not giving the power away to some authority in a white coat or some professional, but also making the decision yourself. So you can listen to the professional and the professional who knows things, but also doing your own research and really also learning to listen to yourself. So being empowered in your own health. And I think that's something that is very, very important. And how does this all connect to climate change? So in my personal opinion, I think that climate change starts from the man in the mirror, so from oneself. And it's about us thinking about what am I doing? What am I doing that's making it worse? What am I doing that's making it better? And not just pointing fingers at other people. And I think that's where we start to change the world. And I also think that when we take responsibility for our own health, we want to start taking responsibility for the planet. So when you become more aware, you create consciousness around your own decisions, around your own health, you also, that has a ripple effect on the climate. And the solutions for health are usually related also to environmentally friendly solutions, like eating predominantly plant-based, eating more fruits and vegetables, which will then grow more plants, using less medication, which pollute the environment. So the solutions, the sustainable solutions for health are also sustainable for the planet. So it's a win-win situation. And in the long term, the plan for Mooneye is really to create these kind of eco retreat centers, health centers, working with different doctors and psychologists, and adopting, like I said, integrating alternative methods with the Western model. And that's really how we can create change in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. So now, are you sharing what I shared before? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Natalie, for that. Thank you very much. Then we're coming to also another very, very interesting solution. We're going to connect to Zambia this time. And one of the key things that you see that happening today, it affects women. And when you need to cook food and you don't have a stove that we're used to, you need to collect firewood. You collect firewood, you don't replant. The earth erodes, and it's a negative. And when you use firewood to cook, it's not healthy for you. So the Finnish company Afstor developed a solar-driven stove. And we're going to hear from Vesa, who is Afstor's managing director in Zambia, where they now are building a factory. And it's a specific project where we're looking for anyone seeing this, supporting the next step of 400 stoves, 2 families in Zambia and beyond. So Vesa, are you with us?
Yes, good afternoon. I am here. Thank you.
Welcome, Vesa.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I thought that instead of a slideshow, I'm going to show a video today. So, Lars, are you able to put it on there, or should I try?
On the video, here it comes, Afstor.
Yes.
In Africa, more than 800 million people live without electricity. Most African families use firewood for cooking. 4,000 kilograms of wood is burned per family per year to prepare food. Extreme temperatures cause drought, and deforestation reduces rainfall. Women and children spend time managing woods and cooking foods. Most children have no access to the internet and modern education. Afstor solves all these problems with one device. The Afstor Solar Home and Cooker System. A cooker that runs on solar energy. Generates renewable electricity to charge smartphones and light up homes. Enables internet connection for education. Tracks and displays cookers' compensation information online. Afstor cookers have been distributed among Zambian households. The families receive it, and as a payback they plant trees. The community has already planted more than 72,000 trees. Cookers have built-in emission trackers in them. We monitor the usage to calculate how much carbon emissions each cooker is saving. When you buy an Afstor solar home system for a family in Zambia, you can track the usage and eliminated carbon emissions information every month. You help reduce deforestation by reducing the burning of wood. By shifting to renewable energy utilization, Afstor aims to be a part of fighting climate change, and you can be at the forefront of this mission. Afstor, reducing emissions sustainably.
Or this, tell us about the villages and the projects and the results.
Yes, so basically what we are doing, I'm not even saying trying to do, but we are currently doing, we are stopping the use of firewood and charcoal completely in cooking in rural areas and peri-urban areas. We started the project 2019, and in this project area in Monza district, we are to power up 400 households with this system. And like Lars, you were already mentioning, we are opening our assembly plant this year now in August, and we start manufacturing the cook stoves in Lusaka, Zambia. The aim is to start scaling up in a way that we start talking about thousands of units per year instead of tens or hundreds of units of cook stoves per year. But it has been very interesting to see the difference. So because it's not only about the reduction of CO2 emissions, it's also stopping the deforestation and participating in afforestation, where the people are planting trees. And I remember I went to Chiumu village in Monse 2019, and there was nothing, everything, all the trees had been cut down already. And the people were complaining that, okay, now they have to go further and further to get the firewood for cooking. But now, 3.5 years later, 4 years later, it's completely different scenery. It's like, it's green, the forests are back, people are excited about planting the trees and nursing the forest and the plantations. So it's a huge difference. And the teacher of the school is saying that now, especially the girl children, they are coming now to school. He even mentioned the percentage, how many percentage more kids are coming to school now, but I can't remember that. But it's like ecosystem in the village. And now the next step is that we are entering into the carbon credits for the forests also, not only the CO2 emission reductions from the cook stoves, but also kind of going into the forest model with the carbon credits and voluntary carbon market. So this is in a nutshell where we are and what Aptor does in Zambia now, but in the future, of course, in other African countries too.
So we're looking forward to hear more, and we will share some information about this 400 new project. What's the village called, Vesa? There's a specific project name in this village.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, this project with the 400 stoves, it's called something. Can you share that?
The full project name I can't remember, because it's also about the gender equality and forestation and all these things. So it's actually Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Finland is funding that project, and it's not only about the cook stoves, but it's the complete ecosystem and everything like related to the livelihood in the village.
All right.
But apart from or in addition to that project, we are now expanding to other partners, and like, for example, we are planning bigger project with WWF of Zambia at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Vesa, and I hope I see you soon, and I come and see the factory that you're setting up in Zambia. I'm sure that His Excellency, the Zimbabwe ambassador to EU here, he's nodding his head that I think he will want to talk to you as well.
Absolutely, and you're very much welcome. End of July, early August, to come and see the assembly plant in Lusaka.
Okay, so big hand for Vesa and Aptor. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're coming to even more exciting. Are you ready? Yeah. Hey, yes. So clean energy today is going through a revolution, and it's with technology. And with that, I want to invite Applehead Finance, young, vibrant entrepreneurs from Estonia, who is addressing this challenge. Henry and Richard, welcome up. The stage is yours. Big hand.
So, hi everyone, good afternoon. Thank you, Lars, for inviting us. My name is Henry. This is Richard. Hi. We are Appleheads, revolutionized and clean, accelerating the green transition with Web3, AI, and clean technology solutions. So it's working. Real life story about our cat Simba, who got sick. And of course, we wanted to know why. After investigating, we discovered that it was due to the toxins in our environment, and this experience ignited us. We went to the bottom of the problem, and that's why we are here today. So we have developed an edutainment ecosystem supported by clean energy to increase awareness what we experience with our cat Simba, who almost died. And our main ecosystem services is play, learn, earn, game that educate players about sustainability and the environment. Yeah, and we are using existing tools, technology to deliver education entertaining way. Players get educated automatically and for free. Blockchain and AI-based auto-sustainable edutainment ecosystem backed by clean energy. We are using AI, carbon neutral blockchain technology, carbon zero, clean technology, and game engine. So this is our team: Henry doing the technical things, me doing the business developing and marketing, and Lars who helping us with clean tech, storytelling, and public speaking, and of course the Peter Westerbacka and Gustav Valtonen who helping us in different ways, and of course ChatGPT. Our industry target market is renewable energy to its high demand. Our colleagues, Power Ledger, Energy Web, and Single Earth, why we are different? Because we unite education and entertainment, thereby investing in future generations. We have auto-sustainable business model and play, learn, earn game that pays users for their acquired knowledges. We are targeting the Indian and African markets, and we want to open our pilot in Rwanda, Kigali, Zimbabwe. Sorry, also welcome. And yeah, now we are seeking support to bring this full unique ecosystem to the market and prove its concept. We need 12 million to develop this ecosystem and proves its conspects. So welcome and join us. Yeah, and we have 79 micro investors right now, and you are welcome to join us as Applehead ambassadors. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, we have a question.
Yes, hello, my name is David. And what is your next step?
Actually, our product is ready for marketing. And our next step is actually to enter the African or Indian markets.
Any more questions? I have a question as
sure.
well, and I should say these are my heroes. They are up early in the morning. They do cold showers, you know, all these things.
Yeah.
So I'm learning from you guys. It's been super interesting and really fun to see since we met the first time and you're here now. So
yeah.
Congratulations. And what is that kind of dream partner or investor that you're looking for, anyone listening to this?
Investor who want to give contribution with us for helping sustainable planet and humanity. So we are actually the guys who really want to give our contribution to the humanity and for the planet. So everyone who is in the same path are always welcome.
Thank you. So you already have fantastic investors. You have Peter Westerbacka. For those who don't know about Peter Westerbacka, have you played Angry Birds? Well, he's the founder and the father of Angry Birds. So you have already great investors following you. So what's the dream? Obviously, we hear now what you've been doing and creating this, educating, but what's the dream? Where do you want to go with this?
Actually, the main dream is that the younger generation are starting to playing our game, and everybody who can help us to bring this solution to the market, to younger peoples, because they are our future. Younger peoples are our future. The many peoples creating the difficult technologies, big things, but the really big problem is lack of ideas, lack of information, and we giving this information the younger peoples. So yeah, and of course the equity. We want that our product is accessible and in everywhere, especially the places where education is not accessible.
Yeah, I'm really sharing that. We can summarize, if we want to be successful in a green transition, it's awareness and knowledge and education. So I really like this approach with play, learn, and earn. So with that, a big hand for the Applehead team. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Applehead, Henry, Richard, fantastic, well done, thank you. So now we're coming to a next session upon clean energy as well. It also involves technology and it involves smart cities. And now we are truly going to connect the world. We're going to hear from Eli in Kigali at Norrsken House. And if you haven't heard about Norrsken House, it's open since 4 years in Kigali. It has 1,000 entrepreneurs every day working on solutions, addressing the challenges we're facing. It's truly vibrating. I was there 3 weeks ago and it was amazing, as with Applehead team, to see the glow in their eyes, the curiosity to solve the challenges. We also will have Kuk Chin from Singapore, and Kuk Chin is the chairman for the Smart City ASEAN. And you are, I'm sure you're aware of the Smart City initiatives, but what is it really? And also Cecilia from Nairobi, who's working effortlessly on these challenges every day. You're all welcome. Welcome to this session. I leave it to you. If we start with you, Eli, if you give us an update of yourself and Norrsken House, what's happening right now?
Thank you, Lars. Thank you for inviting me, and great seeing you again. So in a nutshell, Norrsken is an ecosystem where we make it easy for entrepreneurs to solve the world's greatest challenges. What that means specifically is 3 things. 1, we run these award-winning co-working spaces in Stockholm, Kigali, and Barcelona. All are really well designed, affordable to startups. And Lars was at the one in Kigali. Secondly, we run these different investment vehicles because capital is important if you want to solve the world's greatest challenges. And all of these investments run in startups that are at the connection between technology and climate. That is our sweet spot. And thirdly, we run different initiatives such as an accelerator, incubators that ultimately bring the spotlight to the superstars of our time who are entrepreneurs. So with those 3 things, we believe there's magic there to really bring the entrepreneurs, give them the chances they need to succeed, and thereby make a profit, but also solve the world's greatest challenges.
In November, can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So this is our flagship event here in Kigali. Essentially, again, bringing the spotlight to superstars. We will convene 1,000 people, most of them including the best African startups that are the most promising ones, and investors, including our founder, Niklas Adelbert, who's a co-founder of Klarna, the big fintech company in Europe and the US. So this is the caliber of investors we'll bring, so that if you match innovation and capital, therein lies the magic. That's what we believe.
Thank you, Eli. And Cecilia in Nairobi.
Hi, Lars. Hi, everybody. We're a Center for Science and Technology Innovation, started in 1998 as a UNESCO associated center. Our role is to downscale scientific technology so it becomes usable to the community. Most of our focus has been on climate. So in the beginning, we started with looking at climate adaptation in agriculture and sand dams and that kind of how to, instead of having these large hydro dams, how to create sort of closer to nature-based solution types of water storage and catchment. Since 2016, with the advent of circular economy, it became evident that the knowledge on chemistry is something that needs to be spread because we might talk about emissions, but those are chemicals. Methane is a chemical. Carbon dioxide is a chemical. We talk about plastic waste. There are multiple types of plastics. And when you look at the chemical composition, your ability to be able to reuse those. There's recycling versus reusing for other projects. You can recycle something without necessarily altering the product itself. Like you can cut the top of an oil jerry can and reuse that. And that's plastic recycling without having to melt it down and mix it with other plastics that could be hazardous, like PVC, which is where all the toxins come about. So there's a need for understanding that difference and understanding how having toxic chemicals, especially in built environment products, affects our ability to achieve these environmental goals. Then there's also on the innovation side, it sounds easy. If we know what's wrong, why don't we just do the opposite? The challenge with that is that we have building codes and standards that require certain types of performance outputs, in the case in point being cement. We have cement and the Portland cement, a type of cement that would be more appropriate for the African context, given that we don't have the extreme temperatures as pozzolana cement. And you could put more natural waste aggregates into pozzolana. Then you have, grade 4.3 concrete and structural performance requirements, and all those things it's not just about developing them, but they have to withstand the test of time. And test of time being that when a builder has a project, and let's say they hand over a building, and they give you a 30-year warranty on that building, what that means in industry is that that building, the way it's been designed and built, there's enough tests in industry that has stood safely for 30 years. So as we're designing these new materials and we're saying we want to use them in industry, we don't have that 30-year luxury. So how are we going to figure out whether or not we can issue a 30-year guarantee on something? So those are the kind of wonderful questions we grapple with. Thank you.
And you can also ask, what does these connections have with the new Nordics? And they have very much to do with the new Nordics, because we are over long term had connections in terms of sustainable solutions. Cecilia, we met 2012, I think, in San Diego already. And Eli, we are newly acquainted, but it's all about technology, new Nordics, collaborations to the world. And thank you, Cecilia. And also Kok Chin in Singapore. I know it's late. How are you in Singapore? And share something with us around these topics and the work we're doing for smart cities.
Thank you, Lars. It's been a long time since we met, and I'm dialing in about 10,000 kilometers from Brussels. So if you don't mind, I will share just a few slides to introduce myself and also the work that I do. Just some part of it essentially related to what we hope to do together with the African countries and the Europeans and in the Nordic as well. So my name is Casey. Everybody calls me Casey outside of Singapore. I'm the Executive Director for Smart Cities Council and the Chairman of the Smart Cities Network. But relevant to what we hope to do in Africa, incidentally, I'm also the consultant for UNSCAP and also the implementation partner of the City Investment Facility with UN Habitat, incidentally headquartered in Nairobi. So I just had a call with the headquarters people just 2 weeks ago at the UN Habitat Assembly. So specific to what we hope to do together with you, Lars, is the development of innovation hubs for clean tech. Smart Cities Network is the only implementation partner in Asia for the City Investment Advisory Panel. So working with the US and the Europeans, we hope to realize innovation in our part of the world. And our focus is related to the new urban agenda, which is largely alignment to the UN SDGs, of which climate action, environmental sustainability, social inclusion, and urban development will be key. And our hope as part of our pitch to investors is the development of the feasibility fund championed by UN Habitat themselves under the City Investment Facility to help to develop innovation hubs, which has 4 main criteria. Projects which are investable, financeable, in other words. It has to create positive impact, and what you do is spot on. Realization of the UN SDGs, and to increase the resilience of the communities. And we have taken the inspiration from what they have started in Hamburg, and I cannot see any reason why it could not be scaled to the Nordic countries. But likewise, in my part of the world, a region of over 670 million, to develop innovation hubs where ideas, tools, scenarios, solutions could be prototyped and tested before it's deployed in the cities. So this is my last deck. What I'm showing is really the 26 cities of the ASEAN Smart Cities Network. It was formed in 2018. I worked very closely with them over the last 5 to 6 years and actively involved as the Cambodian, for the Cambodian government as the UNSCAD advisor in Phnom Penh and Battambang. I have assisted over 4 years the development of a movement for smart cities in the Philippines. Today, there's a target over the next 5 years of 80 LGUs. It's a big country of over 110 million people. And of course, myself residing in Singapore, I work closely with the Malaysian government and Kuching. So the invitation, hopefully in this call, is to invite people who are interested in this part of the world to form a task force in which we start small with catalyst projects. So you're welcome to share this deck with the audience. So thank you so much. Over to you, Lars.
Hope that we can meet soon and continue this conversation as well, what you just suggested. And thank you so much. So Kukshin, Eli, and Cecilia, what are the calls for action that you see now where we are in a situation of need of action? If you please want to elaborate and share shortly, what are the things you see? You're all working in different capacities, but is there anything specific that is number one that you see? We start with you, Eli.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lars. So I'll say 2 things. One is in relation with what we do. Africa, receives a small fraction of the investment that goes out to startups. This is unfortunate because for a continent of 1.4 billion, there is a great opportunity, and more capital needs to be mobilized to our startups because ultimately the capital and de-risking that process is what could potentially unlock the innovation and scale to the levels that we need to scale to. Nordskin is already doing some of this. For instance, last year we launched a €2 million fund to fund basically startups that are Series A and pre-seed, and that could become unicorns. So these are startups with technologies that could scale like crazy. By the way, we define unicorn as a startup that could reach 1 billion people and not just be valued at $1 billion US, right? So, but we need more partners. This is not something we can do alone. So if you are interested, I think Lars can share my contacts, but also visit our website for more information. So that's the first thing, that's call to action number one. Number two, as I mentioned, we have North Africa Week, which will be a landmark event for this region, but also the continent, where we hope to bring attention to those innovative startups and already start a conversation going. So tickets for that are already on sale. If you want to know more information about this, we are really building the momentum to throw the biggest innovation party on the continent this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Eli and Cecilia.
So one, when you mentioned points of commonality with the Nordics, the EcoSwan label, that is something that I know the whole process of how to develop the EcoSwan label as something that everybody accepts that these are the guidelines or the regional guidelines or the country guidelines. In a lot of these certification processes that exist, they're designed with metrics that are not specific to the realities of the African continent. So there's a lot of excitement about being able to use the same principles, but design African-centered or African-generated metrics. The other is Scandinavian design thinking. I know there's sort of a lot of belief that there's, this ready market for foreign products. And there is among probably those who are well-traveled, but if we're really going to get to that base of the pyramid, that large majority where sustainability will really make a positive impact, they have very strong adherence to cultural identity. And so design thinking would be really good, or modular components. And by modular components, I mean, if you have a membrane technology, rather than trying to bring the whole waste management polymer electronic membrane equipment, bring perhaps the critical part that would be most expensive or most difficult to develop in a local context, and let the local entrepreneurs design around that. It'll also scale down on cost, because even just basic labor metrics, what's affordable in a highly industrialized country, what might be $500, is ginormously still expensive in the African context for those who are at the base, and many making less than $1 a day. So it being not only the design thinking, but bring modular components that can be disassembled and reassembled into different local innovations. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. And Kok Shen.
All right, so we have three main focus. We work closely with the UN Habitat headquarters under the City Investment Facility to seek for donors and funding for $50 million initially for 100 projects around the world. This year, we hope to raise 10 million, and that's our initial feasibility fund. The second is really to scope bankable projects. So bankable projects to make sure that it is sustainable and it has a return to the investors, and hence the project has to have the public, private, and people partnership. Thirdly, we want to increase the pipeline of the CIF projects, and hence beyond the 2 cities that we support now, which is Iskandar in Malaysia and Ormoc City in the Philippines, we want to increase the number of cities within our pipeline. So these are the top 3 priorities, at least in the next 2 years, so that by November 2024, we will be showcasing some of these projects at the World Urban Forum in Cairo, Egypt. So that's our focus.
Thank you, Kukshin. Thank you, Eli. Thank you, Cecilia. Great action points. And thank you so much contributing to this panel. And I'm looking forward to continue to work together. And you're getting a big hand, and thank you here from Brussels. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So with that, we are continuing to come to a close of this day. And for that, I would like to invite my heroes, Henry and Richard, to come up. And we have some concluding remarks as well. So Henry and Richard, how should we summarize this day or afternoon?
It was it is much good innovations, much experience, and yeah, it was a pleasure to be here. Many interesting peoples, yeah, and so on. Yeah.
What is the next steps? What is the next steps for you now when you've been here in Brussels?
So in Brussels, what's we doing next? Or yeah, we just looking around the city and what's beautiful here and so on. Yeah, but in future we want to be everywhere. So there is too many.
So no business. You're gonna see the town.
Yeah.
So what should they do in Brussels? Is it waffles? And what should they do in Brussels? Okay, you're gonna do waffles. But thank you so much.
Yeah.
Big hand to Henry and Richard.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And with that, I would like to invite His Excellency Mon to actually come up. And if you want to close this loop today, you held opening remarks. I inviting you to do that. Please welcome up. So please give a hand for His Excellency and please summarize this day for us.
Thank you so much, Lars, for this very productive and informative afternoon. The engagements were quite exciting, profiling to us a lot of opportunities in the various areas, and also the opportunities, bringing together people with real people and real life opportunities, which, for example, myself as a diplomat, and Zimbabwe as a country would be interested in pursuing, so that we can bring some of the issues and the suggested solutions that are being pursued in other parts of the world, bring them into our into Southern Africa. We are glad that Lars, you have been able to engage the Zimbabwean population, Zimbabwean community, Zimbabwean experts in the form of Dr. Gunter, and also to the extent where you were able to invite the politicians to visit, members of parliament to visit Sweden and engage with the technological front of the issues we are talking about to ensure and to look at the possibilities of them being brought to Zimbabwe. We feel this is quite exciting, and we have been taking notes, also looking at the opportunities which we are going to be pursuing, and to the entrepreneurs who are here, we want to give to make the assurance that we are going to be following up, reaching out to you and to other people here. And people that the others that may have left, reaching out to you so that we can enter into continuous conversations. We are aware of some conferences that are going to be held in the Nordic countries and also in the Baltic states. We promise that we are going to reach out to officials in that part of the world so that they can make themselves available. Thank you everybody for this wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. Each one of you have been contributing to this afternoon. Thank you all patiently listening. I have truly enjoyed it. It's been amazing. Thank you everyone who has been listening online. Thank you for a good summary, Ambassador. Thank you, all of you. So with that, we're concluding from the first New Nordic CleanTech showcase here in Brussels. Thank you. Big hand. Hey.